All of this talk of large conglomerates and monopolies and price fixing brings up a good question. Isn't this supposed to be illegal? So I went to the Competition Act. Before I get into this document, let's go to Wikipedia. The Competition Act is a Canadian federal law that governs competition law in Canada. It is aimed at preventing anti-competitive practices in the marketplace. The act is enforced and administered by the Competition Bureau, and cases are adjudicated by the Competition Tribunal. So there's our Competition Bureau again, the ones who are doing the investigation into the grocery price fixing. A little blurb on Competition Bureau, the competition regulator in Canada. It's an independent Canadian law enforcement agency that ensures that markets operate in a competitive, innovative manner. We can all draw our own conclusions about how effective the Competition Bureau has been at keeping Canada competitive. Back to the Act. General, high level. This Act is to provide for the general regulation of trade and commerce in respect of conspiracies, trade practices, and mergers affecting competition. The purpose of the Act is to maintain and encourage competition in Canada in order to promote the efficiency and adaptability of the Canadian economy, in order to expand opportunities for Canadian participation in the world markets, while at the same time recognizing the role of foreign competition in Canada, in order to ensure that small and medium-sized enterprises have an equitable opportunity to participate in the Canadian economy, and in order to provide consumers with competitive prices and product choices. The Competition Act is Canadian federal law aimed at preventing anti-competitive practices in the marketplace and enforced by the Competition Bureau, who is currently conducting investigation into whether there is price fixing in the grocery industry. Competition Act is 170 pages and it is just about as enthralling as you might imagine. I did skim through the whole thing and I stopped to screenshot anything that I thought might be of interest. So I think this is particularly relevant in today's climate. Offenses to this act in relation to competition, which would be conspiracies, agreements, or arrangements between competitors. So this is what the Competition Bureau is looking into with regards to the various large grocery conglomerates. Are they price fixing? Every person commits an offense who, with a competitor of that person with respect to a product, conspires or agrees or arranges either to fix, maintain, increase, or control the price for the supply of product, or to allocate sales, territories, customers, or markets for the production or supply of product, or to fix, maintain, control, prevent, lessen, or eliminate the production or supply of the product. Penalty for anybody committing an offense under Section 1, found guilty of an indictable offense and liable on conviction, to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 14 years, or to a fine not exceeding 25 million, or to both. I find it interesting that it's talking about a person when we know that it's corporations that are doing the things that are contravening this law. By the very nature of corporations are their own entity, and the executives who are operating under them are immune to any liability. There's insurance for that. And so that goes back to my how to fix capitalism, is that we need to be piercing this corporate veil, because it's very hard to make people accountable when it's a corporation doing these things. As I'm scrolling through this act, I found this piece interesting on the destruction or alteration of records or things. So every person who destroys or alters or causes to be destroyed or altered any record or thing in respect of which a search warrant is issued under a section of the Act, or that is required to be produced pursuant to an order, is guilty of an offense and liable on conviction. Ask me how this is relevant to the grocery greedflation story.
The government was deleting its food inflation database, maybe as many as 25 years of food data. Can you tell me if the government followed through and did wipe out that data from their database?
It did, actually. Yeah, as a lab, it's been extremely difficult and frankly frustrating to utilize StatScan's data over the last several months. It's been very difficult to know exactly whether or not the food inflation data is accurate.
Oh, look. look, I'm protected under this act. So if any person who has reasonable grounds to believe that a person has committed or intends to commit an offense under the act may notify the commissioner of the particulars of the matter and may request that his or her identity be kept confidential. Okay, oops, whistle blow confidentially if you have reason to believe this act is being violated. This is a good one too, though, down here. If you are an employee of Loblaws, Sobeys, any of these corporations that are doing this, and you have information, no employer shall dismiss, suspend, demote, discipline, harass, or otherwise disadvantage an employee or deny an employee a benefit of employment by reason that the employee is acting in good faith and on the basis of reasonable belief has disclosed to the commissioner that the employer or any other person has committed or intends to commit an offense under this act. Here's where we get into the good stuff. We're talking now about abuse of a dominant position, and this would be in the market. What happens if there's an abuse of a dominant position? If the tribunal finds that one or more persons substantially or completely control throughout Canada or any area thereof a class or species of business, person or those persons have engaged in or are engaging in practices of anti-competitive acts. The tribunal may make an order prohibiting all or any of those persons from engaging in this. Now, what makes up this practice? These are all the activities that could be considered an anti-competitive act under Section 79, which was that last slide. Anti-competitive acts are any act intended to have a predatory, exclusionary, or disciplinary negative effect on a competitor or to have an adverse effect on competition, and this includes the following: squeezing by a vertically integrated supplier of the margin available to an integrated, basically buying up the supply chain so that it's cost prohibitive for others to join the market; acquisition by a supplier of a customer who would otherwise be available to a competitor of the supplier, buying the customer's loyalty; or acquisition by a customer of a supplier who would otherwise be available to a competitor of the customer for the purpose of impeding or preventing the competitor's entry into or eliminating the competitor from the market. Freight equalization on the plant of a competitor for the purpose of impeding or preventing the competitor's entry into the market. Use of fighting brands, I'm not really sure what that is. I think E means make scarce things that your facilities or resources that your competitor would need. Buying up of products to prevent the erosion of price levels. Adoption of product specifications incompatible with products produced by any other person and are designed to prevent their entry into the market or eliminate them from the market. Requiring or inducing a supplier to sell primarily to certain customers or to refrain from selling to a competitor with the object of preventing a competitor's entry into or expansion in a market. Selling articles at a price lower than the acquisition cost for the purpose of disciplining or eliminating a competitor. What the heck species of business? Who wrote this? My personal opinion, allegedly, this is not being followed. So the last thing I'm going to go through on the Competition Act is agreements or arrangements that prevent or lessen competition substantially. If on application by the commissioner, the tribunal finds that an agreement or arrangement, whether existing or proposed between persons, two or more of whom are competitors, prevents or lessens or is likely to prevent or lessen competition substantially in a market, the tribunal may make an order. This would be if merger, Rogers wants to buy Shaw. They say no because it's going to eliminate competition. Why the hell was Empire and Loblaws allowed to buy up every independent grocery chain so that there are towns where every single store is owned by Loblaws. There is no competition. How was that allowed to happen under this act, this federal law that is supposed to be upheld by the Competition Bureau? There is major problems with how this is being applied in real life. The definition of a merger and how that affects this act. The tribunal must look at mergers and find whether or not a merger or proposed merger prevents or lessens or is likely to prevent or lessen competition substantially in any of these following ways. Mergers are supposed to be policed by the Competition Bureau in accordance with this act to ensure that the economy and the Canadian market stays fair and competitive so that there can be entry into the market by new players, aka the small business owners that are having a really hard time competing because these laws aren't being followed, allegedly, in my opinion. But what the hell? Seriously. Reminder that the Competition Bureau is supposed to be enforcing this act. Do you feel that this is effective? More importantly, if you feel it is not, who is supposed to be enforcing this law? It is the Competition Bureau. Let me know your thoughts. Eat the Rich and apparently the Competition Bureau.